Here we are. This is the 5D Chess World Championship Grand Finals played between Ryan4 CEO, whose perspective we're watching now with the white pieces in game one, versus Dreamer, who's playing with the black pieces. I'm joined today, very lucky to have him here, by my co-commentator, Andre. Say hello, Andre. What's going on?
Hello.
All right, here we are, man. There's been a long road here. At the end of these games, we will know for sure who is the very first ever 5D Chess World Championship. I don't know about you, Andre, but I am hyped as fuck for this. What are your thoughts going into this? What are you going to be looking for? Give us what you got here.
Well, when it comes to reverse royalty, I don't have a lot of opening strategy. So.
I think you're not alone there. For anyone who doesn't know, Reverse Royalty is the first game mode that we're playing here. The format of this World Championship Finals match is there are 5 variants to choose from, all standard variants. There will be 3 variants that are chosen in a strike down, like pick ban sort of situation. For game 1, the players have elected to ban variants such that Reverse Royalty is the only one that remained unbanned. Reverse Royalty as a variant is what's going on here is that rather than a king, the queen is the unit that you are attempting to checkmate. So the king is just a regular piece. The actual royal piece that you're attempting to checkmate is the queen, aka the royal queen. The common king moves just like a regular king does, but it can be captured like any other piece. So it's an incredibly interesting variant. I've, for one, greatly enjoyed this variant. It's definitely my favorite by far. And because your strongest piece is the most vulnerable piece simultaneously, the one that you're trying to protect, there's a lot more sort of positional, strategic developmental gameplay compared to the other standard variants, because you have to keep your queen back. You can't just be belligerently aggressive with it, so it makes for really interesting positions, really interesting gameplay. How do you feel about this variant in general, Andre?
It's my favorite also.
Hell yeah, dude. So completely unbiased commentary from us then.
Yes, but well, I didn't play that much games, so
same here. There isn't very much cause to play Reverse Royalty nowadays compared to like Defended Pawn and Turn Zero, which are the standard variants that were played in the 5D Chess League. But you know, that's what's so great about this format, right? Is that you can't just rely on the very standard variants that everyone's been playing forever. You got to get outside your comfort zone. You got to rely more on your creativity, on your flexibility, your positional awareness, instead of just like memorizing opening lines or whatever, right? So really quick start here right out of the gate. Kind of a symmetric structure with the queenside knights out, followed by the kingside bishops, and then these pawns. What do you think? It makes sense. You get all the pieces out early. What do you think about like from this position? Because usually you get out your pieces and you're kind of like, okay, my pieces are out. Now what do I do? Ryan's elected to move up his king, and Dreamer has pushed the F pawn here. What do you think about the asymmetric opening here?
well, yeah, F5 is already sort of things will be not as positional,
right?
Probably after F5.
Yeah, we might see some pieces come flying off the board here in a minute, right?
Yeah, because now like, this knight can come in, and I don't know. It's going to be complicated, maybe. Because in my games against Mage, there was a lot of. I think we played F5 a lot or F4, and this knight often played the role.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Without the F pawn there, I mean, obviously, like the dark square bishop and the knight on f3 are gonna be able to hop into g5 like a little bit more easily. But it makes it's pushing the f pawn so that it's not stuck behind the knight makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, we see immediately Dreamer hopping in there with the knight.
We are watching from Ryan's perspective.
Sorry, thank you for the correction. No, absolutely, we're watching from Ryan's perspective. So Dreamer's allowing Ryan to hop in there with the knight immediately. And I mean, Dreamer definitely has like a bid for center control here. Oh, interesting. Okay, Dreamer's covering f7 with the rook. Which makes sense. He's got to cover it with something, right? With the bishop and the knight pointed at f7. It leaves the defense of the h7 pawn to the knight on f6, which doesn't look like it's going to be kicked so easily anytime soon, so that's probably okay. But I don't know. It's like very wonky asymmetric position, which is really interesting to me out of the gate. There is this... Is there anything interesting going on with Ryan hopping in with the check on e6 right now, do you think, or is just not really anything going on yet?
Well, it looks interesting, but I don't see the continuation. I don't.
Yeah, like after knight e6, bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6. I guess there isn't much that Ryan can do before Dreamer just pushes his common king up to e7 and kicks it. Hard to tell who. I guess like developmentally it'll be better for Dreamer because Ryan will have spent so many knight moves like making those trades happen. I don't know. It's an interesting concession from Dreamer, especially because we see Dreamer see defense like play so defensively generally, right? Oh, okay. Interesting pawn.
Well, I wouldn't say he plays super defensively.
Wow, a flurry of moves there.
Oh yeah,
nice. Out. What an interesting exchange.
So yeah, he prepared the bishop e6 rather than playing it right away.
Yeah. See, this is interesting now because it poses a similar position to what we had before. The only difference is like with the knight being the thing to recapture on e6, that's like it's much less comfortable for the royal queen than like checking with the knight first, right? And then recapturing with the bishop. Wow, we got here so quick. It's been fewer than 5 minutes spent on the call. Well, just over, maybe like 6 minutes or something like that.
Yes, already a crazy position.
I'm surprised that the players aren't spending more time here when the stakes are so high. I guess they feel comfortable. Neither player wanting to concede too much in terms of like time resources. How do you feel about like black-white imbalance in this variant, Andre?
Probably is rather balanced, at least. Like in sharper positions, probably like this. Tempo matters, but okay, Dreamer retreats.
Interesting. Okay, just completely denying Ryan the opportunity to trade and get that piece onto e6. But I mean, listen, as soon as
but obviously he shouldn't have taken on e6.
Yeah, no, that's pretty. What's the fastest way to get wrecked there? If that trade happens, do you see any like sharp tactical line?
Well, first of all, queen has to go somewhere. It will have to go like to b8 or c8, and then you have to calculate maybe Tchaikovsky's or something.
Oh yikes! Yeah, no, because that's a great point. Because if the royal queen has to go to either b8 or c8, well, let's say the royal queen goes to b8, which maybe is less likely to happen because Dreamer knows what the hell is up. Then a time travel, Tchaikovsky, what we're referring to, is a tactic where the turn before this queen moves, you get this bishop here on c1 to time travel onto the undefended pawn on b7, and from the new timeline, it checks the royal queen on the original timeline. So maybe there are some tricky ideas there. But in general, having to like reposition your royal queen to one of the wings away from like the halo of pieces protecting it, it's just a situation that you don't want to be in.
And not necessarily this Tchaikovsky would have worked, but just having to even calculate that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You will have to spend like 10 minutes to verify that it doesn't work.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you go for Queen Tchaikovsky in reversed royalty, then it can end up very badly for you.
That's true. Oh, certainly if you're trying to do it with the royal queen, right? That's like that's like if you're traveling your royal piece in reverse royalty, like aggressively, it's more than a little easy to have the tables turned on you and get mated.
Yeah, I tried doing it against Ryan one time.
There we go. Ryan intimately versed with the reverse royalty reversal. Ryan pulling back here and then just playing like a solid disciplined positional f3, preventing Dreamer's knight from hopping into either g4 or e4 here, which makes sense. Taking space in the center. After something of an explosive start, now maybe things have quieted down a tiny bit. What do you do as Dreamer in this position? Probably start kicking some pieces, right? Maybe like h6 or something like that. And okay, they're right on cue. Thank you. Dreamer obviously stream sniping. Not cool. Oh man. All right, and then Ryan just brings it back, which makes a lot of sense. The role of the common king, we haven't spoken to yet, but often you can't really commentate a reverse royalty match without talking about the common king. It seems on its surface, if you haven't played the variant much, like it might be kind of a weak piece, like limited range, it's slow to move across the board, but the fact that it has access to triagonal and quadrigonal moves actually makes it an incredibly versatile piece, both defensively, defending the vicinity of your royal piece if your opponent makes a timeline, and offensively, all you really need to do is get a common king within like 2 squares of your opponent's royal piece, and suddenly you're threatening a bunch of crazy time travel mates. And so the development of this piece, I find generally kind of characterizes like the flow of the game, either offensively or defensively. People have speculated like whether it's worth more or less than like a knight or a bishop or whatever. I think it's super contextual. It really depends on what the sort of board state is. But it's going to be interesting here to see what paths these common kings take over the course of the match. We'll be keeping an eye on that. Half open file, I actually really like for Dreamer. It's pointing at a pawn that's pretty useless, but I mean, it's just so difficult to activate your rooks in 5D chess. And I find that it tends to sort of lend you like some flexibility as you move into endgames that you might not have anticipated, just like abstractly in principle.
Yeah, and Dreamer might pull a Ryan and like go crazy with his rook and exchange it for something.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, I think might it be like the inspiration behind Ryan's new profile picture?
Oh yeah, with the angry rook.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So Ryan kicking back Dreamer's bishop to b6, which makes sense. Ryan would love to. For anyone who isn't super familiar with like the mechanics, if there's an open diagonal to your opponent's royal piece, that's a recipe for disaster, because just by virtue of having a single piece on this diagonal, without any of your opponent's pieces between your piece and your opponent's piece, usually there are some past checkmates that are made possible just by like pushing one of your pawns, clearing a path in space-time from either your royal piece or your bishop in this case to the opponent's royal piece. And so with the bishop on c5, Ryan would absolutely love to trade his knight on e4 into that bishop. And if you force your opponent to recapture with this pawn, opening up this diagonal, then not only does that hurt your opponent's structure, it also threatens checkmate in just a few turns. So that the bishop repositioning there makes sense in 2D chess context, but like doubly so in 5D chess contexts. Interesting, but this bishop move here, yeah, kicking this light square bishop for Ryan really was quite a nuisance for Dreamer, pointing like all the way into his territory. And so Dreamer quite happy to trade off the light square bishops there and get that rook active, like we said. Wow, what a interesting. Okay, pushing.
This is
4.
Typical Ryan move.
It really is. It really is.
I have PTSD. There is Lexi. Oh my god.
Oh,
Hello.
Is Lexi currently in the call? Lexi is. Yeah. We are joined by our surprise guest, Lexi. Lexi, a former 5D chess champion, top of the leaderboard for a long time before he had to step away from the game for, you know, like real life or whatever. How's it going, man? What do you think of the match so far? Are you excited about this? What's going on with you? How you been?
I'm a good man. It's quite funny that just as I come back, there's this event going on right now.
Hell, you didn't know? You didn't like have any forewarning of like the schedule? You just happened upon the 5D Chess World Championship today?
Kind of.
Shit, awesome.
It's like good timing. How much games have they played already?
So this is the first game. This is the first game out
really?
of up to 6.
Oh, that's awesome.
Before tie breaks, it depends. If the first 2 variants are swept 4-0, then that's it. But if the first 3 variants we don't have a decisive 4-0 result, or a decisive result at the end of 6 games, one way or the other, then we move on to tie breaks. But this is the very first game here, and it's reverse royalty.
Okay, whose perspective are we watching?
We're watching Ryan playing as white, and we've got Dreamer with the black pieces on the other side there.
Right, and this is reverse royalty on the medium timer, I guess.
Hell yeah, exactly.
Right. Who do you think is better? I'm just looking at the position now.
Ooh, positional. I like Ryan's chances better. I think that Dreamer, I don't know, Dreamer's pieces just feel a little stiff. Like his knight and his bishop. And I do have a little bit of PTSD, like Andre has said here, with like this, when you see the A4 push in this position, something about, you know how like the background ambient noise in like a thriller movie just like starts really faintly and you feel like some shit's about to go down? This is what like A4 evokes for me in this position. I think it's gonna be difficult for Dreamer to get out of this. Like the pressure that's about to build with the queenside pawn push here for Ryan, but I don't know. What do you think, Andre?
I don't know. I don't see like plans, concrete plans for now for either.
Yeah, there's certainly, I don't think any like lethal tactics have materialized or anything like that.
Yeah, for me it's hard to evaluate a position if like I don't have. I don't have.
I think at the moment, White's trying to push on the king side and on the queen side, and which is actually now the queen side, and Black's probably gonna try to push on the king side. So I think Black's looking to centralize his common king and maybe go for like g4, g5 kind of ideas, because he has this more active rook.
Yeah.
and white's probably just he might. I wonder if he's gonna push. If he's gonna push a5 here and just sack the exchange.
It's a good question. Yeah, sacking the exchange.
Well, it's not that much second.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on your, one of like the really common debates in 5D chess analysis is like bishops versus rooks. And like almost anything else, the evaluation is pretty heavily contextual.
You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe he's going for rook lift with rook a3, rook c3.
Yeah.
It's possible. That to me feels like a very Lexi move. I feel like I've seen a lot of that.
Well, to me, it feels like a very Ryan move.
Oh yeah. Well, maybe that says something.
From my games in semifinals.
Yeah. Because it accomplishes two things. He can protect, like if you look at the weak squares in white's camp, it's mostly c2 at the moment. He can always move his common king over, but he wants to keep the protection on the bishop up, of course, on e3. So black probably doesn't want to trade on e3. So if white goes for, because you're obviously looking at the if you're black, you're obviously looking at some knight b4, knight takes c2 ideas. But if you have white go for like rook a3, rook c3, you don't only put pressure on the knight, but also protect your c2 pawn.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, interesting way to look at that. I would have thought. Well, I guess it accomplishes the same thing and gives you a lot more initiative than something like king d2, king c3, which is kind of like what I saw happening. Especially because like with just this rook and this g pawn, interesting.
Okay.
What's going on here? What's going on here? Now this does threaten like mate in a few ish, right? Because now Ryan has knight f6 threatening queen h4 mate, which is interesting.
Well, if knight f6, maybe Dreamer can even take.
Yeah, if knight f6, Dreamer's got to take with the queen. And I mean, that's pretty sketch. I don't really see how, like, immediately how you can leverage that. But I mean, is there anything there? You can do another check. But then you...
Looks sketchy, though.
It's sketchy as fuck, dude. Maybe you could even... No, I don't know. I don't really see it. It is cool.
Doesn't black wanna push g5 anyway?
Black probably wants to push g5 anyway, to be honest.
There's a check
but
on
then you do have,
a5 as well.
What if push boom 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 g5, maybe h4, right? And then you can't push like g4 to get your pawn out of the way because h5 happens, and then there's like the road to your queen again. Dreamer basically ignoring this threat, which I guess he just thinks is totally fine. Making a threat of his own, which is, like Lexi was saying, the night before staring down c2. Interesting.
Yeah,
Dreamer
and now
kind of calling Ryan's bluff. Chat saying free knight, take a free piece. That is Ryan's mantra that he's shared on more than one occasion has been see a free piece, take a free piece.
You can't take that.
We'll see if he follows his own advice. No, obviously you can't take that. That's completely fucked, but it is funny. Free knight forehead. That's pretty good. Well, how do you get punished? Okay, so knight takes. Oh, and then check here with the pawn, and you can't trade with the bishop. So you're.
I think it's probably if you take the knight, right, you can probably give the bishop check on a4, on a5, sorry, and then go for something like e5 followed by queen f8.
Doesn't Oh, you know what? If he takes, then queen h4 is just immediate mate.
Oh, yeah, but c5.
That's actually the better answer.
Good shit.
That's good stuff.
Anyway, wow. Okay, so Ryan, both players kind of even on time. Dreamer with 8 minutes on the clock. Ryan with just a little bit over 10 minutes. Half their time used, and we see now the game has slowed down after that opening was blitzed out.
Yeah, that's why I'm always tempted to play fast in the opening in the reverse royalty, because I know that
Yeah,
there will be positions like that.
Right. Narik says,
But I think
it gets
I think this
hard
bad
mated,
for
but
white.
you're up material. Wow, what a trade-off.
Yeah,
Do you guys think? Yeah. So, give me your why make Ryan's move if you didn't anticipate this most obvious
well, I wouldn't
response.
say it most obvious.
You don't think that like you're trying to figure out how to mobilize your pieces. I guess maybe like G5 was the other candidate move. Well, okay, maybe like Common King up. Potentially, but I mean, now that you've seeing this move, you don't think that threatening the fork here, getting your knight like unopposed onto b4 isn't something that you should have anticipated, especially at this level of play?
Well, it's not like he's a grandmaster.
I mean, okay, that's fair.
Okay, so I think white has to go rook c1. Yeah, I was just gonna say, he has to make a passive move here, and I think black's just in very good shape now.
Yeah, I really like the positions in reverse
C1 is
royalty
Monka
where
S.
like both queens stare at one square and.
Like, I would play bishop a5 immediately here. I wouldn't even think about it. just keep up the aggression, keep
Bishop
centralizing the
a5
piece.
is, jeez, that's Monka S for Ryan. Holy butts.
Because he's never gonna take on d3 anyway. On e3, sorry.
Setting
He's never
up for
gonna
a
take on e3
monstrous
anyway.
discovered check, yeah, right there. So, how do you respond, right? Well, it does mean that the Common King is no longer stuck to, like you could have defended the c-pawn if you really wanted with the Common King, but the only problem is that the Common King's burdened by defending the dark square bishop on e3. With bishop a5, maybe you pull the Common King over and you're fine is a strong word, but probably fine, right?
Or even bishop d2.
Or bishop d2? I mean, that makes sense too. Probably makes more sense. Well, probably makes more sense. Oh, interesting.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's actually very nice. Because it's actually if. Oh, no. I already started calculating like crazy things.
So I think white has to take the bishop now.
Yeah, I thought for a second like after white takes bishop, maybe even not recapture and play knight f4. But then yeah, white can't capture on c7.
After white takes bishop? Oh, interesting. Okay, so for the audience here, this threatens if Ryan just allows the knight to take here, then it checks the white queen in the past. Forced only move is recapture, and then the bishop capture checks the queen in the past, which isn't made immediately because the queen can come forward. But it is pretty sketchy. It's pretty sketchy for the white queen that close to the black Common King.
Yeah,
I don't know if
and
necessarily
now
you can
knight
convert it
f4
for sure.
is a big threat, because after knight f4, Ryan cannot play king f2, because then queen h4 checkmate.
Ah, very good, Andre. Right. So, yeah, knight f4 here threatens the threatens the g2 pawn, same way that the b2 pawn was threatened earlier when the queen was on d1. And if you block the defense of the h4 square is quite crucial here. This is kind of, you might think, okay, well, how is it possible to checkmate using the piece that you need to defend, because wouldn't one queen attack the other queen? And the answer is, if you can cut off the vision of a square in the present, that doesn't necessarily mean that the attacking piece can't attack the other piece that's being checkmated in the past. In other words, if here King F2 were to happen, then the royal queen on h4 would deliver mate to the royal queen on e1, because this queen would not be defending that square in the present, and this queen would have a clear path straight to this queen on e1 in the past. So there is this interesting dynamic right now of if either player sort of blocks the diagonal, or really the triagonal, without being too careful, then the other player has immediate mate, because neither player is defending the h4 square with anything other than the royal piece. So that's why Andre was saying, if knight f4 here, then the common king can't come to the defense of the g2 pawn, simply because it would block the access from this royal queen to the h4, in which case black has immediate mate. So really interesting tactical considerations. Here we see Ryan trade off for the bishop. The Dreamer opts to recapture with the a pawn, which makes sense. Capture toward the center. It controls the c5 square. Just cutting off the options of this knight here. Okay, and then Ryan closing up the sort of this liability here on h4 by defending it with the g pawn. Makes a lot of sense. Really interesting position here.
Apart from the immediate problems for white, though, I also want to highlight that every piece of black is actually doing something. Whereas both rooks of white are actually out of the game. Like the rook on h1 is doing nothing. The c2 is actually no longer an issue. Whereas having to trade the bishop off on b6 also opened up the second rook, which is, for example, he can just take the a pawn here if he wants to play simple.
Very true. Very true. Like we were saying earlier, the sort of like activation, I think, of this rook early on by Dreamer is actually it's more consequential leading into this endgame than you might have thought out of the opening. Dreamer now likely to pick up this pawn. Any reason not to on a4?
He might be looking like at some more concrete lines, because whiteouts made some weaknesses on the king side. But I think taking the pawn is just a simple solution. That's what he's gonna play. Also put some pressure on the knight.
Both players even time down to about 5.5 minutes now. So we are coming into an endgame. I anticipate, based on their play styles, that probably we're gonna see a decent number of endgames here in this set, which is, of course, incredibly exciting.
What's an endgame in reverse royalty?
Good question. Who knows? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's nutty. Man, all of these endgames, there are always so many pawns left over. Interesting repositioning his royal queen.
Oh, maybe he wants to play like double the rooks on f5.
Yeah, he could double the rooks. It also adds a defender, which somehow might be of consequence to the common king. I mean, you can't travel with a knight to capture a common king one turn in the past, because it can just recapture itself. But I don't know. Maybe in some lines this is like a consideration. And I think it's more likely that he wants to connect his rooks, which is way easier for him to do than it is for Ryan to do in this position. It's just kind of spooky to play a move like well, if you scooch your royal queen up to d2, then I think you get mated immediately or almost immediately. This knight travels 2 turns into the past onto d4, which is undefended, and that's GG. Interesting that Ryan had so much more presence on his opponent's side of the board out of the opening, but now we see Dreamer's more than stabilized, and he's got sort of a commanding control of
But
the board
that being said, I still don't really like Queen E7 as a move. Because I like, for one, I don't understand what was the issue with just taking the A pawn.
Yeah.
And Ryan's doing the correct thing here. Like, White's still probably losing, but he can play for some tricks now. And he's doing just that. He's gonna push C4 and he's gonna push C5 as well, and then just sack everything on C5.
Yeah, or maybe he just wants to play B3 now. So.
Okay, Dreamer retreating the knight, inviting a trade. Certainly more in his favor than in Ryan's. The white knight on E4 being White's only active piece. Good question. G4 here takes. Well, what's the idea with? Okay, so G4 and then you trade off for White's only active piece immediately.
Yes, take the knight then, I think.
Take the knight and then the black rook can just retreat, right?
Well, with G4 there, White will have to watch out for like Queen H4 at some point.
Oh, good point potentially. Yeah, but I don't think it was operant in that situation. I think G4, you lose your knight, you recapture, and then the rook just pulls back, or maybe even pulls forward to F4.
Okay, King E3, I think now for sure Dreamer should take on A4.
King E3.
A little bit of a mess of this.
Interesting.
Or maybe not.
Allowing Ryan to get...
He can just take and go like King E4 as well.
I'd be surprised if Ryan didn't trade off the knight here, yeah? Because his rooks are so much better?
Vis-a-vis there is diagonal. Yeah, okay, now he takes.
Now he takes. Okay. I thought maybe trade the knight. Well, no, I think it's probably better to take on A4 now. When you have the opportunity.
Yes, it's probably not good to take the knight. It's better if White takes.
Better for black if White takes the knight?
Yeah, I think slightly better. Like it's one.
Okay, recapturing with the rook immediately, rattles it off, doesn't want to create the isolated pawn or block the file.
And now actually White's king is somewhat pinned.
White's king is kind of pinned now. As we were saying earlier, if this king moves out of the way, then there is a clear path by pushing this pawn first and then this common king. The black royal queen would be able to deliver checkmate to the white royal queen in the past. Unpinning the common king here with a queen move. Defending the b pawn.
It doesn't okay, now some interesting stuff.
Connects the rooks as well. With all of the long range pieces off the board, all the bishops and the...
A funny move for Dreamer would have been rook takes f3.
Rook takes f3. Rook takes f3 is great. Opening this up. Do you just win as Ryan? If that happens? Rook takes f3, and then if you take as... if you take with the king on f3, then just pawn push, king push wins, right?
Well, it's not that simple because probably like...
you have to wait a turn first.
Ryan can block with the push. But also there is... Okay, it was just...
with the king?
Yeah, probably not considering the rook takes f3 is a good practical decision.
All right, we're getting down to it on the clock here. 3 minutes for Dreamer, 2 for Ryan. Dreamer pulling back the rook.
Okay,
defending
G5
with
was.
the pawn, trading on A6. Now we've got
I
rook
think
and
Black's
king
slipping
versus
here.
rook and king.
I think White's getting back into the game.
You think
Yeah,
so?
instead of G5, I thought Rook A2 was.
Uh-huh. Really hard
He's
to
gonna, he
say
can
who
just go
wins in
like
this
Rook A1 and
endgame.
then push B4. Like Rook A4, A5, and then B4, and he can break open the position. But
Yeah,
he's playing it a little bit more careful.
I suppose in that sense, the previously poorly positioned rooks here kind of have given Ryan's leveraged into just freedom on the back rank, giving his rook flexibility, where, you know, Dreamers is caught up on F6. It'll take just an extra little tempo for Dreamer to pull his rook back onto the queen side.
Yeah, but Ryan's queen might still be a little bit more exposed.
Even material here.
Dreamer is up a pawn.
Dreamer's up a pawn, obviously, on the right.
Imagine if we like trade. Oh no, yeah, it will not be a traditional endgame.
In a position like this, well, I don't know. Okay, so Lexi here is the resident good at chess person. So from a 2D perspective, what is your opinion of the position and of the relative? I guess you're less familiar with Ryan's playstyle and like comfortability with regular chess, but at least with Dreamer's 2D chess comprehension, how do you think that, if at all, he can leverage the position from like a structural point of view?
Well, the thing both players should be looking at right now are pawn breaks, because you're not gonna make progress because with your heavy pieces. There's too little stuff on the board, and the kings actually can't move forward that well because the pawns are blocking it. So yeah, we're probably gonna see some pawn breaks. Like I was gonna say for white, something like d4 looks risky, but might be a good move. For black, I would be looking at maybe b5.
What do you make of queen f7?
And he's now forcing the issue.
Queen f7 here looking like, do you think it's just to free up the queen from the being on the e-file, or do you think he's actually attempting to prepare this battery in some like meaningful way? He probably
maybe
lose,
to like
right?
also give way for the king. But well,
Interesting. Less than a minute on the clock now for Dreamer. The tables have turned.
Dreamer
He had a 1 minute advantage.
Ryan captures with.
Calculating furiously the consequences of these pawn breaks.
Yeah, I think Black wanted to play. I think Black wanted to play d5, and that's why he put his queen out of the way, so that queen b4 isn't checkmate.
Ah,
I think
okay.
that's because he wants to get his common king into the game.
Interesting, right? Okay, wow. 30
Black
seconds on the clock now for Dreamer.
Weird. I really like takes for black on d4 because of king takes, and we can take on f3.
Oh, okay. Closing the position, kicking the king. Interesting.
Yeah, we might see some trades happen.
I'd be surprised here if well, okay, yeah. What do you do as white now? Because G4 is bad, right? Probably.
G4 is definitely not a good move because then you give
king,
up f5.
Yeah, you give up f4.
Yeah, f4. Sorry.
Maybe ignore swing the rook over to the. Is there something that you have to? Is there like a pressing thing that you have to answer as Ryan on this king side here?
Yeah, I think he's gonna play g4 next. Like Black's gonna play g4 if White doesn't.
Ooh, yeah.
So I think he's gonna play h3 now.
H3 makes a lot of sense.
But they're also getting very low on time.
Yeah, 30 seconds of peace here. We're going
if
into
it's going to
mode.
be rook endgames, then we should like remember the entirety of the game.
Ryan is a lot better at seeing Jurassic Rook opportunities, I think, than Dreamer in general.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I know that Ryan is good at seeing this.
Rather than H3, we see G4 blitzed out by Dreamer. This trade happens, giving up the... Ooh, this is going to be difficult for Ryan to defend here.
Yeah, now I really like it for Dreamer.
Oh, big yikes. Big yikes. All right, 15 seconds on the clock for Ryan, really coming down to it. Obviously unable to defend because of the dominance of the Queen Rook battery on the F-file. The Common King
Dreamer
can't defend the
just
G-pawn.
snatches the pawn.
Dreamer gobbles up another pawn. Ryan with 10 seconds on the clock. Dreamer, a little bit more flexibility. Will he gobble the pawns?
This doesn't work. He can go rook f5 now.
Rook f5. Rook f5.
And later you can.
Okay. Rook f5 right now, in a few turns, and then Queen h7 is mate because of this open triagonal now. We'll see if Dreamer sees it. Dreamer taking his time. He doesn't have a lot. Clock's equalized. 10 seconds apiece. Pulls back the Common King. Maybe he wants to do that with the Common King and have the Rook here.
Yeah, I think he's just wasting time because he sees this idea as well.
That makes sense. Okay, Queen. Of course. Okay, defending with the pawn makes a lot of sense. Ryan can close this up if he pushes his king, and then it'll stop the triagonal from being a thing. But of course, then the no, yeah, that's safe, right? He could have played Common King e4.
Oh yeah, I think Dreamer wins.
Okay, trading here now.
F5, and then he's gonna checkmate. I think he's gonna see it.
Yeah. Okay. He sees King f5. There's no way that Ryan can capture. He looks desperately for Jurassic. 3 seconds on the clock. 2, 1. Doesn't get it off in time. And I mean, it was mate in 1. There's nothing that you can do about this. Next turn, the Black Queen goes on to h7 with mate. You can't capture that king. You don't have any other pieces to move, and that's gonna be it. Dreamer taking game 1 with the black pieces. What a show! Down to the last minute.
I forgot for how long White Queen was there, but probably for long enough.
No, I think it was probably there for long enough. I mean, maybe we can roll it back, but we know with like no seconds on the clock. Yeah, I don't think you force the trade as Dreamer if you don't have it, right? There's no other reason to there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man of the people. Like he had a completely winning position and then spent way too much time and actually made this kind of messy. But yeah, I think in the end he just found the better pawn break in the end game there.
Yeah.
When he could go for this f4 idea.
Wow.
And yeah, just one slip up because it was a tough position for White the entire time. It was actually kind of hard to even find a constructive move other than just shuffling pieces around.
For sure. I think that king activity also, we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but Dreamer getting that forward king, like building an outpost for it, along with the rook battery on the open f file, I just think he leveraged his positions. I think he leveraged his pieces in a really competent way that set himself up for, this sort of pressure in like the ensuing pawn break. I think that was really well done, very disciplined. Wow.
By the way, talking about Queen Tchaikovsky's, there is Lowe's in the chat, and I think in the game against Ryan in the quarterfinals, Lowe's actually in one game did Royal Queen Tchaikovsky to Ryan, and then he got checkmated. But I think that he could have prevented it.
I've never been in a position where where it's even been on the table, a Royal Queen Tchaikovsky. All right, here we go. Players just jumping back into. Okay, so are you familiar with the Tchaikovsky question mark?
No, I think that was after.
Right, so Tchaikovsky is the name for the general tactic where you force the opponent's royal piece to a square that is adjacent to an undefended square, and you travel to the undefended square the turn before the royal piece moves.
So the bishop one on
exactly.
On castles, you mean?
Yeah, the bishop one on castles, for example. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a Tchaikovsky. You're doing it with the royal queen, obviously a much more sketchy, because if you travel with your royal queen, you're likely to get wrecked. But why is it called a Tchaikovsky? I think that we have just Andre to thank for that, right? I think that the nomenclature came from you.
It is a long story.
Okay, it was one of us. I don't remember. I think maybe I called it like the Russian Gambit or something. I think
You said it's Russian classic.
Yeah,
and
the Russian classic. That's what it was. And then Tchaikovsky kind of just came out of that. Okay, here we go. Early symmetry with the knights out bishops, but then Ryan breaking it with f6 rather than d6, which is interesting.
Actually, okay, never mind.
Dreamer kind of similarly goes for the immediate.
What a disgusting move to play f6 here. This guy obviously doesn't watch Ben Feingold.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, SMH my head.
Wait, Dreamer's playing white here, right?
Dreamer's playing white now. Ryan with the black pieces.
Okay, he's going full chat on him.
Yeah,
he feels confident after almost completely unnecessarily losing the last game.
This is kind of what he did last game as well, Dreamer. Except I think actually it's like almost the same. Obviously was behind a tempo in the last game, but it was symmetric up until then. It was the d6 had already been played, or I suppose d3 had been played by white and d6 by black, and then f5 was played by Dreamer, kind of setting up for like a similar structure. How do you feel about f6 rather than d6 in that position? What do you think is the advantage?
I mean, I think you can already see it. I think white's already has a decent advantage in this position, just looking at the development and the space.
Yeah.
Because he can actually get all of his pieces in the open.
Right. Now, knight e7, activating his pieces like a good chess player. And then we see again, here's the similar theme, right? Get the double push the f-pawn, get the knight behind it, and then pull the rook up to the what will soon be a half-open file with any luck. Very solid, very similar structure by Dreamer.
I think you also could have maybe played for something like f4, just shutting down the entire position, and then going for rook g1, and then like not immediately, obviously, but pushing on the king side and just play with this space advantage.
Right.
Whereas now, if he opens up the position, I don't think white wants to ever take on e5 because it's just gonna open up black's position.
Right.
Because taking on e5 actually makes it symmetrical.
Black's piece is just a little bit more clumsy right now.
Yeah, actually space advantage can sometimes backfire.
You never want to overextend, right?
Yeah, because it's also more space to get mated.
Exactly, yeah. No, lots of those reversals. It's a really fine balance to strike in 5D chess, which I think makes it really interesting. The Ryan seeing that the rook on the f file really worked wonders for. Oh wow, Dreamer disagreeing with all of our analysis, immediately taking on e5, which is interesting.
Yeah, now it becomes more symmetrical, which is it's.
Yeah, the only asymmetry in the position is the kingside knights, right?
This just helps black. I think he could have just gone for something simple like king e2 followed by bishop e3 or something.
I like king e2 in that position, yeah.
Activate his last remaining pieces.
For sure.
I think black's probably just gonna pin the knight now with bishop g4.
Yeah.
And then he even has some ideas like knight d4 maybe.
Yeah, I was thinking either king e2 or just the h3 just to take bishop g4 off the table.
The only difference in white's and black's position is the knight on f3 and on e7 right now.
Right. Dreamer chat pointing out, Dreamer missing connect 4 and 1, which is going to be a big blunder, but we'll see if he can recover here. Could have pushed f5. SMH my head. Black does have the open rook. I don't know to like the extent to which that means anything, since both rooks are backed up by the common king. You know, it's not like that knight is pinned or anything on f3, right? This is interesting. It is a little bit awkward that positioning-wise, because of where the knight is, well, never mind. I take that back. But there is an like the way that Ryan sort of slipped his knight into e6 last game. It's kind of an option that like in this position Dreamer has with the light square bishop pointing at e6, and then you've got the knight g5, knight g5, knight e6 kind of like situation, which was a bit of a thorn in Dreamer's side last game. I mean, he recovered from it all right, but it was a little spooky.
Yeah, but actually, I think he not only recovered, but
yeah,
like if you go for
better.
this early aggression, then if your opponent defends, then you might end up just worse.
Both players taking space, pushing the wing pawns, to, getting restricting bishop mobility.
These are some tournament moves right there. I can tell you, because these are the types of moves that you make if you know a lot of people are watching. Because I think if this was like a normal game on the Edo board, he might have played something like bishop g4 or like knight g4, just forcing the issue. Whereas here you're looking at like slow, steady, improving moves.
Right.
Just no early risk taking. Just play it simple. That being said, I think this actually helps Black more than it does White, because while White still has somewhat of an edge in development, kind of. This highlights the weak square on f4. And we might see something like g5 followed by knight g6, knight g6, knight f5 by Black.
Ah, interesting. And g5, knight g6, knight f4 right there. Yeah, these are the kind of moves that, you're like trying to come up with a game plan. You don't have enough material far enough up the board to really make anything happen. So you push up your wing pawns, you get your h3s, h6s on the board, your common king e2s.
This is a little bit too much.
He's gonna play a3 as well.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually he's not.
Okay, all right. Going for this, it's got to be said, I think that Black's dark square bishop was a lot more like spatially constricted than.
This is actually this is an interesting detail though compared to last game, where we also saw this Mexican standoff of the bishops, because in this position bishop b6 is not an option because the a pawn has already moved.
Right.
So he can't take, and White always wants Black to take here and get his king further into the game, whereas bishop takes f5 is actually a threat as well.
Oh, interesting d4 here from Ryan. Knight d4. Makes sense. Pawn could be a bit of a nuisance on that square if these trades happen. Obviously unfavorable for White.
And Dreamer can't take with his knight if he decides to take, because otherwise there is fork.
Right.
But he can take with the bishop at some point, but probably he doesn't want to take right now.
Yeah, if you take with the knight here, then 2D tactics on here.
Because one thing, actually c7 is unprotected in this position, so I'm not sure if Black actually wants to recapture with the bishop.
But is the travel actually good? Is the question.
Well, no, not just the travel, but after something like bishop, like bishop takes knight, bishop takes, and then
like a bishop travel onto here? I think that's almost certainly good. No?
Well, I mean, he doesn't have an immediate follow-up is the thing, because both b5 and d5 are protected by the knight and by the pawn.
Yeah, but the knight is right. I was thinking like bishop trade capture with the bishop, and then if the knight is no longer defending here, then if you travel the bishop onto c7, then queen takes, you have the knight check and then the bishop check, and then like bishop back is mate in a second. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
I get it, but like this seems to me that it was played maybe a little bit quickly, because Black's pushing forward, despite not having finished his development. Like he's still in a good defensive position, but I feel like White's holding all the cards right now.
How do you think Black could have done a better job of developing? Because without with the knight blocking on e7 the development of the common king, which would then, facilitate the development of the light square bishop. How do you think that black could have done this better?
I think black could just played for a little development a little bit longer, or like I said, maybe go for like G5 ideas, trying to plant this knight.
Right.
Also, another thing that might become relevant at some point is that the
probably a6 was mostly
that the e5 pawn is actually he took a defender of the e5 pawn, and we might see in some lines where knight takes e5 might become a tricky move if the knight ever moves from the e file.
Right. Knight takes e5, opening up the diagonal. Very true.
He's still. I wonder if he's gonna take here.
Interesting. Very interesting. Dreamer with a bit more solid position, more developed pieces, but with much less time on the clock. 2.5 minutes taken by Ryan. Coming up on 8 minutes taken up by Dreamer. Really
I think I would
deep
probably
in
take
thought
the knight here if I was white.
You think so?
Because it just looks like such a solid position. Like the only thing that why you might hesitate is a little bit because you don't really see a plan how to develop your common king, because then you lose some control over the e3 square.
Yeah.
But like in the long term, like that bishop is not gonna accomplish anything. And you still have some pressure on black's pieces, whereas the only piece black's challenging is the knight on c3, but you're never gonna take that.
So all right, let's say. Oh yeah, no, that's pretty monk-ass, huh?
Also, like, there's always, even though it might not be a threat, like you always have the threat on c7, and it also means that it's much harder for black to actually make some moves. Because for example, if the e7 knight ever moves, you immediately can go like knight d5 and then threaten the bishop.
D2 played by Dreamer after several minutes of mulling that move over.
This is
adding a defender to the pawn on c2.
Might be seeing some ghosts.
Sorry? Knight takes f3 looks tempting.
Knight takes f3.
Yeah. And then bishop is at some point bishop
right,
takes
so knight takes f3, and then if we have well, if pawn takes back, then we have the bishop recaptures on h3. If rook takes, then you trade in the rooks, and then you have the same capture.
There is a lot to calculate. Because
what is the upside for Dreamer in this position? I'm kind of surprised that he took a defender off of the rook. Because like chat was saying earlier, this rook kind of is pinned now that this knight is kind of pinned on f3, which might become operant if this trade doesn't happen immediately anyway, that is.
I think black has to be careful though that if he takes on f3 here,
yeah.
Like after some recaptures we might see bishop takes c5 as an in-betweener.
Yeah, it might be maybe even immediately, but then like knight. There is a lot of to calculate.
Oh jeez, yeah, that's crazy.
I just it's a tempting move.
Oh no, that's rough.
No, I don't think you can do it immediately.
If you do it immediately, then the knight captures, checks, only move recaptures with queen, maybe.
I don't think you can take the bishop after knight takes f3 because there's the knight time travel onto the rook.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But actually, after knight travel to the rook, queen can recapture because it's a queen.
But then isn't the don't you have a double check with knight takes d2? I think that's very scary.
Takes, boom, takes.
No, but knight travels
though, right? Because then you retake
the bishop
knight.
is still protecting then, okay.
Okay, he
okay, so the trade happens on
I don't like that move.
With the rook, which is interesting because Ryan now has the opportunity to just blow up the position by trading rooks, right? I mean, the counterplay being, potentially white again. Okay, so Dreamer he's done the math and deemed this advantageous for white. Capturing this, now you have to decide between opening up the diagonal here. There is like an intermezzo check that you can give with the rook here, which like possibly it's kind of difficult to cut off that diagonal.
This is going nowhere for black.
Going nowhere for black. Yeah, so
I think he just missed it. Like he can't have seen this and been like, "This is how I want to play."
Right.
I don't know. I kind of like it for black still.
Opening up this diagonal in order to not go down material.
You can't move any pieces is the problem.
Well, then again, you don't have. You just traded a rook for a bishop, right? You don't have to sack this rook.
I actually kind of like it for black. Just like we can retrieve the rook, maybe then place solidly for a while, and then we have this. This rook is ready to jump on the back rank and start doing stuff.
But what's your move here?
Just rook f6 probably.
Rook f6. Similar to last game, is Ryan's light square bishop being sort of undeveloped makes his queenside rook kind of like a non-factor. Doesn't have much space either. Not necessarily super duper easy for Dreamer to activate his a rook either, but
I just
don't
see how black can actually like push forward, because he has no pieces forward is kind of the problem. All of his pieces are in the back row, whereas white has 2 active bishops and a knight that can immediately jump into an attacking position. Whereas like after something like rook f6, like white can I think even play something like g4 and just shut the position down completely.
The thing is, if you don't take the bishop on c5, doesn't a travel screw you? Or it's super duper scary, right?
I think if you take the bishop, white might even just be able to go like knight e5.
Well, I think if you take the bishop, that's true, but also if you don't, okay, Ryan does what I said, which is goes for this intermediate check, and hopes that it is basically difficult to impossible for white to
is he going to play knight f5 here? Is that the idea?
Knight f5 immediately? Possibly. I was thinking recapture here because otherwise a travel destroys you.
Oh, that looks disgusting though.
And your opponent just doesn't have... It doesn't look like there's an easy way for white to close up the diagonal. I think black probably gets wrecked earlier, but
yes. I think after knight d5, I think you're going down. Do you see a defense?
Knight d5 and then what? Well, knight d5 c6 probably, right? And then what's the idea? Because you can't like push the pawn behind the knight and then pull the bishop back. That doesn't work.
That doesn't work?
Yeah, it's like you have to push the... Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No,
you're right. But you can... Wait, no, maybe you guys are right. Maybe I'm...
Yeah, because where you vacate the square that the pawn is on, and that is the point in the diagonal that your bishop has to be at. You have to like replace the pawn.
If you push twice, 2 squares, then you can do immediately.
Yeah, if you move the pawn twice, then you can.
Okay, so what about e4 followed by king d3 followed by queen e1?
Sorry, e4?
Is that fast enough?
Yeah, it's fast enough, but...
d4 followed by... Yeah, that is fast enough, yeah.
It's not yet an option, because for now it's just opened up. So it will be like in 2 moves.
This is an insane position.
I
idea.
think knight d5 is the way to go forward here, right? Or do you guys see a better move?
Better move, I'm not sure. It depends on the extent to which both players using about half their time here, by the way. The extent to which Dreamer thinks that he actually has to worry about the F file. Because, like, if you're relying on pushing the D pawn and then the common king and then pulling your queen back, then I think black can mate your queen maybe earlier. With like if you okay, you'd have to maneuver your queen or sack something to the pawn on e4. It's really difficult to calculate, but both players have to be careful getting mated.
Knight d5. For some reason, I want to play bishop e6.
Bishop e6 in response to knight.
Yeah,
d5.
and actually, it's some like 5 turns in the future. Maybe we will have a threat of like bishop f7.
e5 takes. Honestly, I think that's winning. Whoa, okay. Queen h1 from Dreamer.
Are you scared?
I guess he just wants to. I mean, it's too late. The diagonal is already propagating.
Yeah, but now it's only like 1 turn window, so it's much harder to.
Yeah, and I suppose now you can get the rook onto f1, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of like this. Although I don't know, I think it gives up a lot of time. I mean, Ryan with just the Ryan move, just push the pawn up. I really did expect c6, but I guess this works better. You're kind of forcing the issue. Although
I think White's okay with this. Like even after something like, yeah, maybe just drop the bishop back. Although
now if you push the pawn,
does he have c5?
That's
C4,
I don't
sorry?
think he
Does
has.
he have c4?
C4.
No, he doesn't.
Because if he has c4, you take, and then you push the king, and then
he
you
doesn't
have
have
mate,
C4.
right?
I forgot already because actually White has still the idea of double phase.
Yeah. I think if you push c4, then you facilitate a double phase, right? Because
But I'm not sure if
take
it's
c4, king d3, and then queen d1 is mate.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it's enough time since pawn takes.
Instead of common king instead of royal queen h1, says Sirtis, what about d4?
Previous move d4 wasn't fast enough.
White has to be careful because there's gonna be a window where black can move his knight and then threaten queen f6 mate.
Oh, then d5, says Sirtis. No, you lock yourself into playing d5 if you play d4 last move in order to get the phase in on the right turn, right? Which
no, but we can just take on d4 and then we have a pawn protection, right?
Oh, that's a good point. He makes a good point.
I think he's gonna play c6 here. Trying to cover and get ready to move his knight basically.
Okay, yeah, it's very hard to top the double face actually.
It still looks very, very problematic for black though. But White just has to be careful that he doesn't choose the wrong moment to go for trade here and just play something like I think White's just gonna play like.
Although actually, yeah, for now double face doesn't work probably because of queen f6 at some point.
Double face doesn't work. Yeah, but you have to. Well, okay, the issue with that is that you haven't covered as a black the diagonal to your queen yet. You need to play c6 so that you can move your knight off of e7 to open your queen's eyes to f6. You just have to do that, otherwise, bishop e5 or bishop d5 is immediate mate. Because you have you still haven't covered the diagonal. So
knight f5 was not a move, unfortunately, because it just wants to do bishop d4, bishop d5.
Exactly, yeah. So right now the knight is pinned in some sense to
Yeah,
defend
actually,
on
I'm
d5.
starting to like c4 here.
Starting to like c4 here more. But c4 pawn takes, and then what? King up, and then queen d1 is mate, isn't it?
c4 pawn takes, knight c6. I think it's will be threatening queen f6. Checkmate.
Oh, do you think so?
I got the timing correctly.
Oh, but that you still haven't closed the diagonal, and rook f1 just shuts that idea down, doesn't it?
f1 and then
Because
although
now you don't have pieces to
I
shut
wanted to play like knight e4, but you can still. Oh no, yeah, just knight e4, and then your queen cannot go to to d1 because now the rook is blocking.
94. Yeah, and then the rook is blocking. Ah,
And
Jesus
maybe
Christ!
like
What a crazy position! Holy shit! Ryan really taking his time here, falling behind for the first time this game. 8.5 minutes to 7.5 on the clock. Ryan opting in this position to finally block the diagonal, liberating his knight soon of, you know, the duties of defending on d5 here. Okay, so the rook claiming the f file. Ryan almost blitzing out g5, opting not to.
This is just very, very, very good play from White here. It just looks so well structured. Like he has such a safe position.
His pieces
for
are
all of his
incredibly
pieces.
well coordinated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then at some point he's just gonna push forward with like knight d5 or just walk his king in maybe.
Right. Are we out of the woods with any diagonal mate?
Actually, white's queen is a little bit lonely there, which is.
Yeah, well, black's pieces aren't in a position where they can really probe the
Well,
structure.
for
Right?
now, but like, if black's deals with this phasing ideas, which probably already don't really exist because of this.
I think all the phasing ideas are gone for both players now. Yeah.
The only idea I see here for black is go for c6. Like you're gonna have to play c6 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Then the d5 square is
Yeah,
just too weak.
right.
And then move his knight somewhere.
Wait, am I crazy? Does bishop d5 not win right now, or is it a turn
No,
late?
already not.
Really? Because the bishop just moved, right? Oh, maybe you're right.
Yeah,
maybe it's a turn late. Yeah.
If bishop moves, then g5 is the only square, like the next turn. And this is the turn after that turn.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, this knight looks kind of scary. But it might be like my...
Yeah, but the common king's not doing much, right? You push the common king up? Well, I guess then you have the issue of like knight on h5 and then like potentially traveling to h2 or sorry, knight h4 potentially traveling to h2 or something.
Probably even better traveling to h3. Okay.
Wow.
I think in this position White should put something on
f5.
White should put something on d5. Or actually that's actually a really good move. I like that.
Rook f5.
Okay, we'll still play knight h4, threatening to take twice.
Right?
Take twice where?
On f5?
f5. With the bishop first. So like knight h4, bishop takes, knight takes, and then knight.
But if you take with the bishop, knight takes, and then the bishop is mate on.
Oh, actually, now
right?
queen can. Yeah, queen can. I forgot it is a queen.
Yeah.
So queen can just go to a1. This super saves there.
Oh, it's true that this does open it. Yeah, okay. The royal queen is going to be much safer on a1. That's true.
Yeah.
The royal queen a1 in a position like this is definitely an Andre move.
Yeah, and taken twice on. Yeah, it was better because it opened up to them.
Oh my goodness. Less than 5 minutes now. Wow, this game, this positionally has been. Well, I think Dreamer has been a lot more solid all game.
Yes, I think he's a little bit careful now. Like something like. I wonder if you can maybe get your queen out of the way now, like something like queen c8.
You know, I like queen c8 actually. I think that's really good.
And then at some point, what I would try to play for here is at some point threaten to actually take the rook and then plant your knight on f5.
Okay, knight h4 coming out of Ryan. And Dreamer with almost twice as much time on the clock now. 7.5 to about 4. So what are you worried about here as Dreamer? If you... I mean, the night travel is kind of annoying, but also... Not really.
I'm interested where knight travel to h3 is going, but it's just a little bit off the screen. And
wait, isn't he threatening? Wait, isn't he threatening knight travel to h2?
Night travel. He's threatening knight travel to h2 now. Knight travel to h3 now actually, I think is really good because the rook isn't on. Yeah, it's forced only move recapture with the pawn, and then the bishop captures, and then you have to recapture, and then potentially. Oh no, but then I think the bishop on d5 from white delivers mate first, right?
It also takes any. Wait, no, actually it doesn't. I was gonna say it takes any queen a1 idea out of his position, but it actually doesn't.
Yeah, if knight travels to h2, then queen queen g1.
Yeah, but it does mean that you can never create another timeline then, pretty much, because you're going to be checkmated instantly.
True. Well, wait. No, because that
this
timeline
this
just
is suddenly not easy to play for White though. Like I think he should have put something on d5 a while ago.
You can only not create a timeline on the new timeline, right? You can still create a timeline on the original.
Oh.
I don't know, can't you play queen a1 here? Am I correct? Well, okay, you lose.
Yeah,
you miss.
You can, but
you give up g2, which maybe is an issue. But then you. I don't know. Knight takes g2 and then rook takes e5, and you're better as white.
Actually, what about bishop d5 now? Idea is that if black ever wants to capture on on f5, you also you can open the long diagonal eventually from h1 all the way to a8 if the pawn's not on e4 anymore.
So give me that one more time.
So if you go bishop d5 now,
bishop d5,
you might then later have some ideas of maybe capturing the rook, and then like with check, and then if black ever captures the rook on f5, you already have the e pawn removed, and then you can maybe get a check in with g4 at some point.
Ah, yeah, could be.
Because the white bishop's not doing anything at the moment, other than like controlling some squares. But black is actually kind of stabilized.
Well, it's pinning this bishop, right?
Yeah.
Which is pretty upper in the position where the rook is on f5, but it's really hard to say. Okay, equal on time now. Dreamer really taking his time in this position. Doesn't want to succumb to any risky, horsey shenanigans here.
Yeah, but whenever I have a knight near my roll piece like that, I'm horrified.
I like queen a1 here for Dreamer. I think queen a1, even if you give up the g2 pawn, which maybe isn't even the best move in the position, you take the e pawn. You're collapsing on the wonky queenside structure.
No, actually, Dreamer has less time.
Yeah, Dreamer really taking his time here. which I mean, it's an absolutely critical position, so to be expected, but he doesn't want to overdo it, especially in an endgame as sharp as this one is turning out to be.
Well, I wouldn't call it an endgame yet.
Well, you know, the lines are
Not
blurry
like-
in 5D chess, right? Wow, interesting. Okay,
Immediately.
Ryan immediately looking at travels.
Yeah, this travel might not achieve that much, but in reverse reality also counter travels are not as strong, so maybe.
Oh, you know what? The travel onto H3 doesn't work because after the initial recapture, the pawn recaptures from the original timeline.
The pawn recapture.
Yeah. Now that I see it on the board, I do wish sometimes that we could play out lines like that on the board, but it is what it is. Gotta exercise our visualization muscles.
Mm.
These are
Knight
some crucial
H2
decisions. Okay,
might have been
unpinning the queen from the bishop here.
Let's go for queen c8 now.
Yeah, queen c8, which I think makes sense. I'm still not sure that I understand knight e2 from Dreamer last turn.
It seems a little bit counterintuitive because you're not really looking at like the square you're protecting, which is g3, is not really under threat anyway. And you don't wanna go knight g3 yourself. Maybe he's
weird.
Going for some pawn break in the center eventually.
Maybe he is looking for knight g3.
I think black can just take on f5 next move.
Yeah. Actually, the next move I think taking on f5 might have a problem because
now it's like, why don't you just take on e5?
A queen travel to one turn before. Maybe some potential. But,
rook takes e5 now? No? Doesn't that feel good?
What?
Rook takes e5 for white?
Oh, rook takes e5? Yeah.
No, rook takes e5, you can take on g2, I think. And then h3 is hanging with jack.
Oh yeah, rook takes takes.
That's why I like queen c8 because it actually puts some ideas on
spooky,
h3.
Huh? Yeah, you're right.
Like threatening knight takes g2 here. Like if he moves the rook.
Good call.
It's actually not that simple to play anymore for white. I feel like. Maybe now would be a good idea.
Rook h5. Skewering the knight to defend the h3 pawn.
That's also funny. That's a funny move.
Interesting. Now it's becoming painfully apparent the immobility of Ryan's rook and common king here.
I think black's better now though. Like I think white made too many defensive moves.
I think you're right. I think that knight pullback gave up a little bit too much initiative.
He's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. Okay, 1 minute on the clock for Dreamer now. Momentum initiative really ambiguous. Okay, Dreamer pushing g4. Another defensive move. Really blocking in his rook there, but defending against this bishop queen battery against the h3 pawn. Again, I submit that queen a1 solves all of these problems. But maybe, this was necessary to prepare that move. Under a minute now on Dreamer's clock. Ryan with almost 3 times as much time. Now he's got an opportunity here. He decides to push a pawn to box out this bishop here in a move. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, a3 is what I expected. a4, I suppose, works.
But bishop wasn't even been
well.
Wouldn't have been so boxed out there. Oh, or maybe it would have been. Okay, never mind.
This is interesting. Ryan's still obstinately refusing to develop his king or rook, opting instead for this pawn pressure. Okay,
this is becoming like a signature of Ryan.
Yeah. Okay, wow, the rook lived behind the a5 push. Wow, intro. Okay, less than a minute on the clock. We're going into a
And,
really interesting
it's-
pawn break
Well, that's weird.
heavy
He needs to get his
endgame.
knight into the game. Like he has to do something like knight g3,
Yeah,
knight f5.
Ryan Bruin is very. I think Ryan had a very sort of brutal plan because the last thing that was on c1 is White's queen.
Right.
And if he plays like King e7, Queen f1, and Rook c1 is just checkmate. But well, of course, Dreamer will defend.
I think he has to play
All
knight
right,
g3
yeah.
here.
Knight g3, mobilizing the knight. Half a minute on the clock here for Dreamer. We are getting into blitz territory.
I think now is where I would be looking at something like c5 to just open up the position, like
C4.
c5 and then pawn takes and then take on a4.
Right,
And then the
so
bishop gets pushed
c4
back to
pawn
a2.
takes, take on a4, bishop gets pushed to a2.
I like just King e7 here.
Very, very low on time now. We're coming down to the wire.
He has to be a little bit careful if you play something like king. If you move your king up, you have to sometimes be careful that if White puts something on f on f, and then the capture happens and the e4 pawn moves, then afterwards you might have a bishop check on g1 at some point. But
Ryan
this
executing to a T.
Oh yeah,
Lexi's
this is very
plan
nice
here.
from Ryan.
Okay,
Oh,
opening up
That's
the
exactly what I
position.
would have played.
Wow, locking it down. Fantastic. Wow.
yeah, okay. I for some reason forgot that you don't have to like. That it's not checkers. Then you don't have to.
Dreamer's light square bishop absolutely iced out of the game here. Dreamer trying to make room for it by pushing c3. 20 seconds on the clock. He is on the back foot, but anything could happen here in this endgame. We definitely need to be cognizant of, okay, this king is a little bit more free to push up now that there isn't this back rank situation going on. The queen can always recapture, of course, but still. Dreamer desperately attempting to revive his bishop, get it back into the game. It is trapped behind all these pawns. It's unclear exactly how he's going to go about.
What if like knight f4 and if king takes, pawn takes and then just push the pawn?
Oof. Okay, flexibility of the rook here being leveraged by Ryan, staring down that b2 pawn. It's unclear how exactly Dreamer can defend.
Push the pawn.
10 seconds on the clock now for Dreamer. Less than a minute for Ryan. Ryan threatening risky business here. Then again, it's unclear what exact immediate tactics there are. I don't know how you respond as Dreamer now to the capture of this b2 pawn, especially with 10 seconds on your clock.
Okay, will Ryan play a3? No, just a3, a2.
now you got to look at Jurassics as well. This rook actually here is incredibly dangerous potentially. We don't have the liberty to look.
He's gonna. I think he's just gonna play out this timeline.
Yeah. Okay. Pushing up the pawn. All right, forcing this trade here. The Comet King actually is a crucial defensive piece there for Ryan. Dreamer showing signs of life.
Does he have a time travel on the bishop at some point? Like on d7?
I was looking at that, and it's possible. I don't think anything is conclusive because there's the Comet King defending.
He has to do it now.
Wow. Okay. Checks now.
What happened? What did he do? Oh, okay.
Okay, both players with about 10 seconds on the clock. Ryan threatening a devastating promotion on a1, which we don't see too often in 5D chess. 10 seconds on the clock. Ryan's got to get his queen out of harm's way.
I think White's winning. I think White's winning this.
Oh my god, 4 seconds on the clock.
I forgot to look at travels.
Okay,
wait.
Ryan managed,
he has to just play like 1 or 2 more checks.
Wow,
he played a silent move.
Wow.
But it might be still actually.
Oh my goodness. Okay, trading away the rook for the bishop.
That is so unlucky
enabling
that the queen
the promotion.
Is controlling f8.
Now we've got an asymmetric bishop knight versus king rook endgame. 5 seconds on the clock for almost both players.
How do we keep track of all the squares?
You have to be incredibly careful. Ooh, the rook check here is going to be pretty bad. Rook check here forces the block. Now, oh my god, it's going to come down to Royal Queen repositioning here.
Oh,
Either player
it's
could
like-
win this. The triagonals need to be
Can you
calculated.
take and play Queen F8?
Take and play
Queen F1?
Queen F8, I think is...
Queen F1?
Oh my goodness! Oh! Dreamer
Ow.
calculating out the triagonal mate
What a
on
clutch.
B4 to F8 just in time. All of those checks after the initial rook check on D5. Ryan repositioning his queen to like the one spot that Dreamer can target with the repeated checks, which is absolutely insane to see with fewer than 10 seconds on the clock. That was masterful. Wow. What an insanely tight endgame. That was so swingy. It was really hard to see who was going to come out ahead there. Holy shit. Credit to Dreamer for seeing it in time. Wow.
I think we're starting to see a pattern here in this match where Dreamer gets into really, really dominating positions right out of the early game, and then plays just maybe a touch too defensive. But in the end, he can always, like once he's down on the clock enough, his elo goes up by 200%. Who does that remind you of anyone?
I don't know if it does, but whoever reminds you of this guy must be a legendary player of the sport. Listen, man, that's 2-0 in Dreamer's favor. Now, we talk not too often about like black-white advantage. I think it's pretty negligible in a game like Reverse Royalty, where the variant is pretty slow. There aren't like crazy explosive, like out-tempoing sort of like gambits that you can pull out of the opening. I mean, any advantage is pretty huge. I think that Ryan in general doesn't play very much Reverse Royalty. So I think it was probably one of his like less comfortable variants compared to like Defended Pawn in turn 0. No one really plays any Half Reflected, and Princess is Dreamer's pet variant. So of course, Ryan's not super enthused to be behind 2-0. Is also not the end of the world.
Can you remind me again what's the format?
Absolutely. So there are 5 variants that you strike down from. So it's turn 0, Defended Pawn, Princess, Half Reflected, and Reverse Royalty. So now that we've played the first variant, which is Reverse Royalty, the players are once again going to strike down to one of the 4 other variants. If Dreamer wins the second variant 2-0, that's over. He's the world champion. If he doesn't take the second variant 2-0, then we strike down to a third variant. And then of the 6 games, the 3 best of 2s in 3 different variants. If there isn't a clear winner, then we go into a tiebreak. I'm not super familiar with the tiebreak procedure, but we'll worry about that if we get there. Right now, let's...